But I would like to introduce a petroleum engineer who has joined us today, Paul Wilson, and he will start us off. Thank you, Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Wilson, a recent graduate from the Colorado School of Mines in petroleum engineering, and I guess I'm here to talk to you about the process of oil and gas and fracking. So what we're looking at right now is just, this well site has probably about 10, 15 wells on it. All of these tank batteries are for just holding oil. This has already been drilled, fracked, everything is set up, and they're producing oil and gas out of this. So it starts off with drilling, obviously. I guess land acquisition is your first step, and then you drill the well. They set surface casing to seal off all the aquifers and protect your water sources and cement those, and they drill. In this area, they're drilling one shot all the way down, 17,000 foot laterals, and casing and cementing those. And once they get that done, they start the process of hydraulic fracturing, and they'll bring in, could be close to 20 pump trucks, and they'll have all those set up in a line, and they pump down at, could be 5, 6, 7,000 psi water to hydraulically fracture your reservoir. And whenever you hydraulically fracture, it's not breaking the rock into little pieces necessarily. It's just opening up large, single large fractures.
Your angle of the way you're holding it is
angle of attack is wrong? Okay, thanks, sir. And so these fractures will extend, could be 250 to 500 feet out into a reservoir just to get larger surface area so you can drain a larger percentage of your reservoir. And I guess the biggest issue with that is you have a ton of trucks pumping nearly 24/7 for a number of days, releasing a huge amount of CO2 and other, particulate matter, because these are just diesel engines going. But yeah, and then once they're done fracking, they just they put all these tank batteries up, start producing. That's the gist of it. Oh, also, yeah, they'll pump several million gallons of water in one frack job throughout this. About 20 stages depending on your well. They'll set a, I guess you'd call it a plug, and then they frack one section. They'll drill that plug out, set it another 50 feet down, and then fracture the next section. So you'll just have a long string of these horizontally or vertically oriented fractures extending about 200 feet out into a reservoir filled with sand to hold them open down into a reservoir so they can drain at a higher rate. Yeah. And do you have any questions? So in the DJ Basin extends up into Wyoming. It's a huge. How big are these reservoirs? They're huge, massive, expansive of reservoirs. Pretty much all the primary grade A reservoirs are depleted, so they're going after these shale gas or shale oil reservoirs, which the DJ Basin is. It's an unconventional reservoir spread out over a pretty large surface area. So that's why you're seeing, you've got DJ Basin wells going in all over the place, up into southern Wyoming, around the whole Denver area.
What's DJ?
The guys.
Denver Jules. So let's do hands so we can call
What
them.
does the DJ stand for in DJ Basin?
Denver Julesburg, evidently. Yeah.
So, I just wanted hands. Okay, Patricia?
So if you look at these pillars here, it looks like there's something coming out of it. Do you have any idea what that is?
So these are either just flares to burn off excess methane or dehydrators. So they will sell gas, and before they can put it into a pipeline, they have to dehydrate the gas. And these are either just flare stacks to burn off excess methane, because I think Colorado is now to like a zero emission for their tank batteries, zero methane emission state. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I've most recently heard. So yeah, either dehydrating gas or just flaring off methane.
Julia? What is the main difference between like this type of facility versus the derricks that you see bobbing up and down in a field? What's the differences?
Well, it's really just how you get it out of the ground. So all of these wells are probably flowing under natural pressure, or they have electric submersible pumps, which it's just a different way of pulling your fluid out of the ground. So those pump jacks, they're just creating a pressure imbalance, bringing fluid up to the surface. These probably are at high enough pressure to flow on them by themselves. Yeah.
Do you frack and then pump and then frack again and then pump again, or is it fracking is one
So
initial stage?
So it goes drilling. It goes drilling. You drill your well, you case it. You have steel casing, cement all the way to bottom, and then they'll come in. They'll perforate their casing, and then they'll frack. It's the process of pumping hydraulic fluid, water, 99% water, into this reservoir, and they pump it down under huge amounts of pressure, 20,000 psi up to fracture these reservoirs. And then once they finish like a 20-stage fracturing job, they'll get it ready for production. And that's whenever fluid will flow back into your casing up to the surface. Yeah.
So you guys are pumping this off-site, or if they're trucking it?
I'm not aware of that, but I work around here, and I haven't seen a huge number of trucks. And with the number of wells here, they would have to have trucks in here all the time. So my expectation is that they hold these in these tanks over here for a certain amount of time, so they can separate as much water off of it, and then they'll pump it into a pipeline, most likely.
Yeah, when you're considering the usage of the water, I know it's millions of gallons per well, and I know it becomes, toxic. It's full of the small particulates and radioactive materials.
Yeah.
And now, do you guys re-inject it into old wells, or do you put it in open, pits or whatever they call it, for it to kind of evaporate? And my concern, I guess, is with all the use, it's not usable anymore, is my understanding, for like drinking. It'll never be able to be drunk, not for a reasonable cost. So, I guess my concern is with the water usage. How much have you guys used so far? And
So water usage with fracking, there's a lot of different methods that are used, but I think primarily they pump them into disposal wells. They have disposal wells around here. You pay a certain amount of money to pump it down, but a lot of places are going to a completely recycled, any amount of flowback water they get, they try and recycle it and reuse it for more frack jobs. But you could, in theory, filter and clean it to a point that it would be drinkable again, but like you said, it's not economically viable at this point. But yeah, there's a lot of different methods for disposing of it, and some are better than others.
And some cause earthquakes.
Yeah, no, that's another issue. Like in Oklahoma, where I'm from, that has been a huge issue with underground injection wells. You are literally increasing the pressure of these reservoirs and causing the earth to move.
So I think 4 more questions. I guess what overall average is the lifespan of one of these type of well pads, and then if you're not going to pump, water into it afterwards, what happens after it's finished? You're finished extracting out of a well.
So I'm not sure about this area, but wells can range from their economic viability can range from 5 to 20, 40 years. There's wells that have been producing since the 40s. So a very long time for some of them, and shorter for others, just based on economics. But as far as what happens after the well is done, in Colorado they set up a state fund that oil companies pay into for remediation after the well has run its course, and the idea is that it gets remediated back to its original state with, of course, some. They'll cement the well in most of the time and remediate the land around there. But yeah,
I don't know what your other speakers are going to go into, but I'd like to ask a little more detailed questions about the steps that you went through a moment ago. Are you the appropriate speaker for that?
Yeah, okay. I can speak a little more detail.
So we are from Triple Creek, which is a 22 well site that's out west Greeley. And process there, when they were doing fracking, they used Liberty Oilfield Technologies quiet fleet technology, and it was still pretty loud, but we were told that it was much more quiet than the normal frack. After that, now they have started the process of drilling out the plugs.
So that is part of the fracturing process.
Okay, so tell me about that. Where do they set plugs and how do they drill them out? And then, once they're drilled out, then that allows the pressure that has built up from the frac. Everything then is able to come back out of the well and be separated, and then sent off in the pipelines or trucked off to injection wells for the produced water. So, tell me about the plugging and...
Okay, so they fracture, they perforate, so your lateral section could be several miles long, depending on how much you want to fracture, but so they'll start at the very deepest point, and they'll perforate, and then they'll fracture the deepest point, and then they'll move back, set a plug so they don't re-inject into that fracture again.
Oh, okay.
Perforate there, fracture again, set a plug, perforate, fracture, all the way up. And then once they're ready to drill out, they drill out all of these plugs down to the bottom, and then they allow flow back there.
They drill out all the plugs at the same time.
Yeah, they'll just
allow flow back. And so the flow back now consists of, it's just a mush of everything.
Water, oil.
Water, sand, chemicals, natural gas, oil, everything. But primarily, the last thing that goes in, which is the water.
Chances are it's going to be mostly water. Yeah, you'll get 90% water kind of.
Okay, and then they separate into the three basic components and then dispose of.
Or sell.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
So I'm spaced out about the reservoir, what that is, where it is.
Oh.
And then I have more questions. How do they possibly separate? You got gas, you got water. How do they separate?
So it's that is by density. So you see that tower right there? There's a pipe coming off the top. There's one out of the middle, and there's one below that. So gas is the lightest. It will naturally separate from oil and water under certain pressures. That's probably surface pressure, or just above. And the gas will go out the top. Your oil will float on the top of the water right there, and then your water comes off the bottom. So that's a basic process of separation. If you let oil and water sit long enough, it will just separate naturally. Same with gas. Yeah. And a reservoir. What more do you want to know about?
Do they drill a reservoir? Or they find a natural pocket? This is underground.
Yeah. So these shale reservoirs are pretty expansive. They're large sections of shale rock which have these micropores that have your hydrocarbon in them.
How deep are they?
So around here they're around 7,000 feet. The ones, the Niobrara that they primarily, or Codell, they'll primarily drill around 7,500 feet, give or take. Yeah.
Okay, Patty, last question.
Yeah. I just want to ask, in Colorado, where drought is going to be our main concern, and we're using 3 million gallons of least for every time we frack. But do you guys ever consider, when you frack to and when you go down that deep, what are we doing to our aquifers, which is our drinking water?
Right.
And the second part of that question I want to ask, and I do know, I'm just wondering if people in your industry are starting to feel a little bit like, are we doing the right thing? Maybe we should. Is there any talk that going that direction?
Well, okay, so the aquifer question I can answer, and then I can only speak for myself. So the aquifer question, your aquifers are sitting at probably around 500 feet or so around here, and our surface casing is designed to go down to 2,600 feet or so, or 1,600 to 2,600, depending on where you are. And they'll set casing and cement that, and they'll run a cement bond log to make sure that everything is bonded properly, so you don't have any entrance of fluids. And then you drill down another 5,000 feet to your 7,500 feet, and your fractures only extend roughly 200 feet. So if you think about it in the scale of the well, your fractures are very unlikely to enter your aquifer. And I'm sure there's studies been done that say that it can, but it's very uncommon for your aquifer to have any intrusion into it from that. But just on the personal question, I myself personally believe that if the oil and gas industry went away tomorrow, I'd just find another job. It's for a lot of people, it's just it's just what they do. You know, it's their lives, and they think everybody who believes just solely that the environment is their only concern is crazy. And then, you know, other people are like, oil and gas companies, they're all crazy. But it's really just people trying to make a living for the most part. You know, finding a job that they can get in their town and doing it. And that's the same for me. You know, you come from a poor family, you go for the thing that makes the most money, so you can pay off your student loans. Yeah.
So, one more very quick point or question.
Yeah.
The question had to do more with water that is remaining to us human beings. Water is potable water is a finite resource. What is anybody running numbers for the actual ratio of how much water is used in the fracking process versus how much of that finite resource is remaining?
Absolutely. I don't have the numbers, but I've seen information on that where the fracking industry uses maybe 2% of the potable water, and the rest of it is used for agriculture for the most part. And municipalities use, you know, maybe 15% of that total, and then agriculture uses a huge amount. But yeah, so overall, the grand scheme of things, hydraulic fracturing does not consume a huge amount of the potable water, but it is a concern. Absolutely.
It's forever removed from usable water.
Yeah, economically.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Yay!